Hi there, I'm Larry Hedrick with Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains. Today we're going to tell a story about a gold mine owned by Clay Worst, the WASP Mine.
Well, I came to Apache Junction in 1947, over 70 years ago, but I acquired the WASP, and where my home is now, just over 40 years ago. The WASP, this is strange. I'd mentioned that the Mammoth Mine was all Mormons, Merrill, Hakes, Kozner, but right in the middle of them was a Gentile, Joseph Riley Morse. And back in those days, they had an acronym, WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And the Mormons probably derisively called him the Old WASP. Well, he named the mine after himself. So a friend of mine, Cliff Sovig, and I acquired the WASP about 40 years ago. Split it. Cliff took the south end, I took the north end. Never dreamed of ever mining it. The WASP ore chute wasn't discovered until 1929, and it was discovered 1,000 feet underground by an encroachment from the Mammoth Mine. At the 1,000-foot level, the Mammoth people were drifting south, following the Mammoth Fault contact, where all of the gold here at Goldfield has been discovered. They reached their south boundary and found some very good assays. They continued under the WASP, which they did not own, but it's pretty dark down there 1,000 feet, and encroachments back in the pioneer era were common. And they drifted, I think, 193 feet under the WASP. And there was about 115 feet of that drift that averaged 0.6 of an ounce per ton. And in the center of it, there was about 15 feet that averaged almost 2 ounces. And at the end of that drift, at the face where they quit, 12 inches wide, it still averaged almost 3 ounces. So they encountered very good ore at the 1,000-foot level. Now, the WASP ore chute was not discovered near the surface until I think it was 1986, when two prospectors or miners named Welker and Housley approached me about getting a lease on the WASP north of the highway. I'd built my home on my part south of the highway. I gave them a lease. What I didn't realize then, that there was a fellow over here at the Bluebird. There's a fellow over here at the Bluebird named John Wilburn. Wilburn had gone over on the WASP north of the highway and noticed a blue copper carbonate bloom right in the bottom of the wash, which indicates copper mineralization. Darn his hide, he didn't come to me. He knew I owned the property. He went to Welker and Housley. They came, got a lease on it, went over with a backhoe, and 4 feet below the surface, they hit the apex of the WASP ore chute. They mined it as an open pit down to about 50 feet. Took out $620,000 in gold, which would be over $2 million today. I terminated their lease for non-payment of royalties, and the operation was shut down. I went back into it and did some exploration work down to, another 10 feet. But that $620,000 that Welker and Housley took out is what's called a supergene enrichment. Now, deep in the bowels of the earth, where it's under incredible pressure and temperature, gold and silver and precious metals will actually go into solution with water. And where you have a fault, where you have a weakness coming up to the surface, that pressure can force those solutions up through that fault. But once it reaches the surface, then the temperature and pressure drop sharply, and the gold and the silver precipitate out. And that creates what they call a supergene surface enrichment. It will not continue to depth. But the feeder, we know for a number of reasons that where they intercepted the WASP ore chute at the 1,000-foot level is definitely the same ore chute that Welker and Housley worked out as a surface mine. That feeder definitely has to contain some gold. How much? There is only one way to know. It has to be drilled. That is expensive. It's something I cannot do. I'm 90 years old next year, and I must sell the property. So I've got to sell it to someone. I personally feel the open pit is at the end of its economic life. It probably is. It's got to be someone with the funding and the technical expertise to go ahead and drill it out, to determine what's down there, and then, presuming it drills out, to develop it as an underground mine. You can take the assay, the values at the 1,000-foot level, and the 1,000 at the 50-foot level, and you can try and interpolate, and you can play with arithmetic, and you can come up between around $25 million. Now, you can also extrapolate this. It hadn't bottomed out, so if you add 10 or 20% to the bottom, and the end of that drift was still in pay ore, if you add another 10 or 20% to that, you could come up with $50 million, and those figures mean absolutely nothing. It's wonderful to play with the arithmetic, but really the only way you will ever know what's down there is drill it out, and that I cannot do. Well, one unusual thing about the WASP, this is something we never quite understood. Merrill, Hakes, and Kozner and Joseph Riley Morse staked out the Mammoth Group back in 1893. When they sold out, Morse kept the WASP. They sold everything at Goldfield except the WASP. Morse kept it back and patented it, bought it from the federal government back in the pioneer era. The WASP was the only mine that was patented at Goldfield in the pioneer era. The Mammoth, the Bluebird, they were patented in modern times. Now, why he kept it back, we have no idea. It's strange. The work on the Mammoth mine was recorded by the engineers that were there. We have the most beautiful set of records of those 3 miles of underground workings on the Mammoth. We've got it all down in black and white, and nothing on the WASP. We know that there had to have been a shaft on the WASP because there was a newspaper article that someone had fallen down the shaft at the Old WASP Mine and was killed. We don't even know where that shaft was. There's no evidence of it today. But at any rate, the WASP was not extensively developed during the pioneer era. Morse held it back, later sold it to a fellow named White. It finally came down to Sovig and myself. And we've got dreams about doing something with it. We would like to see Goldfield back in production again, and it very well could happen. The history is there, the geology is there, and the WASP, since it is private land, you are not bothered with permits from the Forest Service and the BLM and all of the other paperwork with the federal government. It's a very clean operation, so hopefully we may be able to do something with it.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.